Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist Podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, once again, welcome to another iteration of the Simulationist Podcast. This is the 88th iteration, and the date that we're recording it on is the 11th of May, 2014.
Happy Mother's Day!
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Mothers, grandmothers, would-be mothers, people that have birthed, something in fiction sort of thing, like Ed Greenwood can be considered a mother because he gave birth to all of the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, that movie Junior.
Yes, he quite fictionally and literally in that case did give birth. Ficto literally? Within the reality of the fiction? He ficto literally?
Sounds good to me.
That's a new word. We just made it up. We've got the evidence for it.
I'll file that away in my brain, ficto literally. I am one of your co-hosts, Josh Trelevin, as I always am, and as always with me on the other microphone,
Brian Kirkby, until the day I lose my voice. In which case, I'll just see what I can do for a typing-speaking program.
Yeah, we could have you, do Stephen Hawking it.
I don't know if I'd be as eloquent as Stephen Hawking. He manages to make the robot voice sound extra smart. Now, robot voices are normally smart, but he really raises the bar there. And I guess that's a pretty big seat to fill. But I do my best. Although, knock on wood, that never happens to me. I kind of like my voice. Okay,
but you are, once again, you're getting a little bit of that sickness, a cold or cough.
I've kind of worried myself sick this week. I would normally have been okay, but I stayed up a little late, and I've been worrying for my daughter's health, and I'm researching, okay, she's got hives. I'm looking up everything here. I'm cross-referencing.
So Zoe listening to this in 15 years.
You better thank me. I worked myself sick just to find out all I have to do is wait for it to go away.
I was going to say you should apologize to her for talking about her hives.
What's the thing? It's a very common thing, especially for kids in that age range. It happens, sort of thing. It's not reflective of she had poor baby hygiene. No, it's hives. As the Benadryl commercials say, there's a very good chance you're never even going to know what caused it.
I think you might be just digging yourself deeper, but that's all right.
No. I'm going to side on Benadryl with that. You might. Okay. It may just be a small insect comes by, and bites or stings whatever the insect is inclined to do, and then goes off, and we're never able to tell what it is. She's too young to properly voice, Daddy, something bit me. What was that? I'm sorry, she's too young at this point.
Oh,
so,
well.
yeah. But that said, I was worrying myself sick this week, so I do have a cough. In my research, my health has failed me. But only slightly. I'll do my best to minimize any coughs. Try and muffle it, keep it to the background. Or we'll briefly pause it, I'll cough, and then we'll, make sure Josh edits that out, and then it'll all flow smoothly, in which case, maybe you never hear me cough.
Yeah, I'll try and do that, probably.
If it can work out. Otherwise, who knows?
So, enough about illnesses and sicknesses. I'm sure that was riveting listening for the last minute or two.
Listening to me come up with an excuse is always entertaining.
But we should talk about the games and games and simulations that we've been playing.
Well, I know this week there's some games news. Well, fiction news. Not games themselves, but...
fiction news.
Yes, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is being definitively picked up for a second season.
So good news, yes?
Well, maybe not, depending on whether or not you like it. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did have a lot of people saying, it's not what I was really expecting.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, this is not a new opinion or controversial by any means, but I sort of, even if I don't like the show, and I can't really say for sure because I haven't really watched more than 1.5 episodes, but I'm still in favor of there being sort of sci-fi-ish superhero content,
well,
even if I don't like it.
People were expecting superhero-based stuff. This is for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it was more of a spy government type thing.
Okay.
With some very fun high-tech gadgets and mysterious things going on. But like a lot of Joss Whedon stuff, he starts out just basically, like random cards just being thrown out, and it seems, it's kind of slow, it's, not much here, but then it all weaves together, and it's coming in beautifully, and it's working well with the movies, too. So if you're watching, is it round 2 for the Marvel movies they're calling it right now?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, every round ends with an Avengers movie sort of thing, so it's like round 1, round 2, round 3. I don't know if they have a round 4 planned out yet, but they have at least 3 Avengers movies planned, and what movies will be coming out in between those. So,
right.
Hooray for actually having a plan, guys at DC. Maybe you should be taking notes.
Well, they just don't have a public plan, or do they?
They don't seem to have any plan aside from can Zack Snyder do it for us? And don't get me wrong, Zack Snyder's good. I really loved his Watchmen movie. But that's a lot of superheroes resting on one man's shoulders. He would do well to have 1 or 2 other directors to help out, and because Marvel's got some nice content, but DC's got the true epic paragon hero type stuff.
Yeah, the ones everybody knows.
The stuff that's ingrained into culture. Like if you are really strong, you don't have bat strength, you have super strength. If you have a power that's good enough to be remarkable, you have super blank. Why? Because of Superman, his super hearing. Theoretically, anybody with great strength should have it, of their own type. We'll say Power Girl should have power strength. But no, it's so much ingrained into us. She has super strength. It's become a thing. And
cool.
Marvel doesn't have this degree of pedigree that's part of our culture and the very words we use. It's not so well ingrained, and yet DC can't get a decent movie produced just when they want to. They got to default back to Batman every time they want another hit one. Otherwise, it's kind of a flip a coin. Heads, it's a good movie. Tails, meh. Which is not to say that, even a meh movie is bad. I mean, the Green Lantern movie wasn't great, but I still enjoyed it. Could have been better, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So yeah, guys at DC, take notes. Although that said, they do have a new series, Gotham, coming out.
New TV series.
Indeed. It'll be about a young James Gordon, not yet commissioner, but him dealing with what life is like before Batman, kicks ass in dark alleyways every night to keep things clean.
Okay.
I'm willing to hold out some potential on this. I think they've finally gotten the formula down. Like, they had some rocky bits with the Smallville series. They go over to the Arrow series, and things are doing much better there. Not perfect. I think keeping it as like the last sane man in Gotham City sort of perspective is going to work out very well. Fingers crossed.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking for... I'll
so, if you were thinking about whether or not to drop your cable package, there's a good couple of reasons to keep it open, at least on the basic cable.
Do we know if it's going to be on Netflix?
Well, it's Netflix. Eventually, everything will be on Netflix.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Or a Netflix alternative. The non-Flix.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the big news stories.
Well,
fiction-based.
I was going to mention, also sort of in news, I guess this is news too, but Community got canceled, which is sort of a nerd show, I guess. It's not really, but it's the NBC sitcom Community.
Worked a very nice internal narrative, I've been told. I haven't seen a lot of it myself. We diversify who's watching what. Josh gets stuff like Community.
We cover different things.
I get stuff like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that way we get to the most out of the entire palette of current fictions.
Yeah, so unfortunately they canceled it. But
this is like the permanent cancel, not like they've canceled it. Oh, no, wait, we're renewing it like they've done in previous seasons?
Well, I mean, it sounds like NBC is definitely done with it, but there's a movement among fans that they want Netflix to pick it up the way Netflix picked up Arrested Development.
I believe Arrested Development.
Because
they've also got 4 Marvel series in the works for that too, by the way, on Netflix. So
okay, so Netflix has a lot of projects sort of in the air, but
cross fingers, everything stays in the air and nothing falls, because it's kind of like juggling Fabergé eggs. You don't want any of them to drop. It's oof.
Yep. So I am not. Well, let me see. I liked Community. I like it a lot. I like the show, and I will be sad to see it go. I don't know if I'm the biggest Community fan in the world, but I definitely would have paid. Like the way I've been watching it is I purchase each episode on iTunes, which is. I could probably, for the amount I've spent it, I probably should just have a Netflix account, which I actually don't. But I would be spending another $40-50 on the next season if they made it. So
well, geez, I mean, even with Netflix increasing its prices by a couple dollars a month, that's a pretty good reason to go with Netflix.
Yeah, so it'd be.
They're not our sponsors, by the way. They're just like. Doing such a good economical deal, we kind of have to root for them. Because we're cheap and we like good deals.
Yep. Yeah. So that's another piece of TV news. I guess this must be. I didn't even think of it before, but this must be the time of year when they sort of decide whether TV shows are coming back or not.
Except for Fox.
Okay.
In which case, if it's not reality TV or something by Seth MacFarlane, it's canceled. In which case,
right.
it's like a random choice as to whichever thing they've got on their list gets cancelled like once a week.
Yeah.
It's Fox. You know what's the weird thing is about Fox, though? Is that they gave X-Files the second season. And the ratings were doing so bad that if it was done out now, X-Files would not have gotten past the first season. And look how good the ratings got once they found their audience. And things are like I remember, like going home, and just making sure everything was ready. No, I can't go with you guys tonight. X-Files is on. I gotta watch this. It forced me into there to watch it.
Yeah.
And I got rewarded for that. Hooray! There were 7 seasons, but we'll say there was at least 5.5 solid seasons of good stuff. Plus a couple things that, whatever.
Sure.
But that's pretty darn good for TV. So fingers crossed, everyone can find their target audience in the right amount of time, because Fox does not give the same leniency as they used to.
Yeah.
Oh, well. But on to more personal stuff. What's been going on with you this week, Josh?
Oh, well, a little bit, I guess. I've been, let's see, I'll talk about my adventures in Minecraft once again. I was building a giant, machine to kill Endermen. In the end, and I was working. I kept on dying though, because I kept on I'm making it really tall because I sort of the way I'm gonna have them. They're supposed to die is by falling. This is the standard design that you can find on YouTube. Is it drops the Enderman.
You took your finger off the shift button and went off the side.
Well, sometimes I did that. Sometimes I tried to get. Use water to make my way down.
Oh,
and sometimes I would outrun the water, or I would fall faster than the water, and sometimes I fell slower than the water, or I don't know, the water was gone. But another time the water froze. I made a water drop for myself, but I forgot that I'm not sure if the end works like this normally, but I modified the end so that water would freeze.
Make it a little tougher. Make the Enderman a little bit more harder to defeat. Or chase off.
Yeah, and that makes it, because one of the methods of getting rid of them is by dumping a bucket of water out so the water goes everywhere and chases the Enderman away.
That is how I get rid of the Endermen in my basement.
Yeah.
Then they go topside the golems, smack them, and I get a free Ender Pearl. Haha.
So it works like the normal world, in a snowy area, if there's sky above the block, it'll freeze. But if you have it covered over, it won't.
Ah, yes.
So that's what ultimately I was like, oh, okay, I just got to cover it over. So now I have a properly working water drop. But it was kind of funny the first time I dropped because, it's so high that you can't see the ground from the top of it.
Oh, my.
So I jumped off the tower, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to land in my water. It's going to... And then, ice is coming. Oh, no. And then smack.
I'm getting flashbacks to some old Tom and Jerry cartoons. Very nice, very nice.
Yeah. And because it was in the end, there's half of my equipment, your equipment scatters everywhere you die.
Oh, yeah.
And half of it fell off the edge into the void, so I never get it back. So, yeah, that's... and then ultimately, I pulled the plug on the entire project because I was so frustrated. One thing...
Pulled the plug or just decided to leave it be until you regained a little bit more calm for it?
It's still there. I don't ever intend to go back, but that's not to say my mind might not change at some point, and I might decide, I want to try that again. So it is sort of half completed, and it's... but one of the main reasons I think why is because I'm going to need a lot more pistons, and that takes iron, and
You don't have your own golem farm yet?
No, I don't. Maybe I should. Maybe that should be my next project, I guess.
Don't feel too bad. I still haven't got a working golem farm either.
Although, also, the other thing, halfway through this project, I was thinking to myself, wasn't there a reason why I wasn't doing this? Oh, yeah, because I don't want to just basically slaughter the Endermen, because I sort of think of them as sort of sentient beings. And it's like, I'm sort of playing this game not necessarily like good guy all the way and hero all the way, but I try not to be like that guy who just, sends them to their death like one after another.
Like they were some sort of chickens, right? No.
Yeah. Although I was thinking to myself, well, maybe the Endermen, maybe they aren't totally like sentient, like maybe they're not.
They do seem almost falsely sentient.
Yeah, maybe they're robots or just like animals that happen to walk upright.
Well, there definitely seems to be something about them. They seem friendly, like they're trying to converse with you, with their little walk stuffs and all that.
Yeah. And they get mad, but I don't blame them for getting mad when I look at them because they don't like me. They're shy, so.
I was just kind of figured they were kind of a spaz that way. I don't mean to use the term derogatory, but that's the first thing that came to my mind when I looked at one and he flipped out on me. Like, what the hell was that? And then I do some reading. Oh, don't put your crosshairs there. Okay. And that's why I just scare them away with a little water whenever I catch them in my basement. So, yeah. They have my sympathy a lot more than most of the other monsters I've encountered there.
Yeah. And I don't mind, I have plenty of cow farms and pig farms where I'm just slaughtering them left and right and, dropping them down cliffs and burning them with fire.
Well, that way you get the cooked stuff, right? Yeah,
you can get them. So I'm, fine with that, but for some reason I don't feel right about just killing Endermen just one after another forever. So
what if someone wants to take me up on the idea I had in a previous iteration where they had Ender cows?
Oh, yeah.
Would you feel as bad about slaughtering an Ender cow?
Maybe if they picked up blocks, I might, because I'd be like, well, they're like humans. I
don't know. What if they just make that crazy face at you, and then they start blinking around and just start trying to ram you?
If they just I'd probably be fine with killing them.
Okay.
For some reason, that bipedal shape is Although chickens are bipedal and. Kill that.
Well, just not exactly bipedal as in the same all the way.
Yeah.
So what if you were to put a couple extra arms on the Enderman so they could carry more than one block at a time? Would that make it a little worse? Then you could just imagine them as some sort of spider person?
Maybe, but they'd have to be kind of crawling around like spiders, I think, to really get me. I don't know how. I'm not even sure how my brain works on that. So
I find you can gain a lot of enlightenment by analyzing what it is that gets you on that.
Yeah, I think it matters that they stand upright. It matters that they sort of have that vaguely human shape, although they're just blocks. But for some reason,
everyone's just blocks. The sun is a big shiny block.
True.
And someday I'll get high enough to mine that too.
Mine the sun. That would be a fun mod.
Well, there we go. There's a nice little mod for someone out there to work on who's ambitious enough. Find your way to the sun.
Get like blocks of helium and hydrogen.
And thus begins the whole Minecraft nuclear fusion project.
Sweet.
I can dig that, man. I'll dig that and then I'll mine it.
Yeah.
All right. So, anywhere else in your travels in fiction this week, Josh?
I think that about does it for me. I feel like the week went by really quickly, so...
Yeah, I felt that way for me, too.
Yeah. And I guess I spent a lot of time on that project and sort of abandoned it after, working on it a lot, so... I guess it's like start over next week and trying something new. So yeah.
Well, it's okay. At least you tried, and that's the main thing. I mean, those who just look at the stuff and never do anything, well, that's one thing. But those who give it a try, then you gain the essence of just how dang tough it can be sometimes.
Yeah, I'll give myself that credit, sure.
And that's something I would actually like to see on more tutorials. Like, here's how it goes. Now I'm going to show you the polished, stuff, edited, all that. But here in the corner is my death tally. How many times I died in the process of making this for you as I was constructing my own.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably help a lot more people. It's like, well, I only died twice. This guy's got like a death counter of 5 in his tutorial alone. So, if you're making tutorials out there, there's a nice little extra bit for you. Distinguish you from amongst the crowd.
Yep. Yeah, so that about does it for me. How about you?
I've been making my city look pretty in Minecraft.
Also Minecraft? Sweet.
Yeah, I gotta say though, I was looking up at the dyes, and I'm a little peeved that there's no proper blue dye, only light blue. And, well, you can breed sheep with a blue sheep with a white sheep for light blue. You can't breed a light sheep and a black sheep to get regular blue.
Ah, yeah.
Which, means I had to go all the way down to the bowels of the earth, dig around. I got a lot of redstone now.
Okay.
I never use it, but I have it.
Have you got diamonds yet?
No, that was the only other thing I haven't been able to find. So,
if you've been to redstone level, it shouldn't be long before you get diamonds.
I don't care very much for diamonds. I got
the
2 I needed for my chest, so I have the enchanting table now, and that's all I really need.
Yeah. Have you traded with your Endermen? Villagers?
I can get diamond anything I want with the amount of villagers I have, but I'm saving up right now with all my emeralds for my trades. I would love, if I'm holding a block of wool, I would like anybody trading wool to come close to me.
That would be good.
Yeah, the same way you get like cows and sheep with the right feed, they come to you. Yeah. I want that for the villagers. I spent an entire game day running around trying to find how many people I could find to trade all this extra wool I have.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the one day I find everybody trading wheat.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I got no wheat on me. I got no room for wheat and wool altogether. You dang villagers.
Yeah.
I built this city for you and you spite me. Urgh. But I managed to get the proper colors. I didn't actually go with blue for my houses. I went with a nice cyan color for one
cool.
district.
Like a cyan wool, yeah.
Well, if it was just up to me, I probably would have gone with the basic colors, blue, green, red sort of thing. Even though, yes, I know green is not a basic color. It's a combination. Whatever.
Well, in additive chromatics, green is, because it's RGB, red, green, blue, in monitors and stuff. Yeah. So additively it is that, but yeah, subtractively green doesn't.
No, well, here's the thing, is that there are the 4 basic colors. You get 4 people, on a game board. It's red, it's blue, it's green, it's yellow.
Yep.
But the yellow blocks of wool in Minecraft always remind me of A, SpongeBob, and B, the sponges that they had in the very basic stuff, like the free trial beta you can always play.
Yep.
And I really don't like the color. So I decided, it would have been just, the 3 other basic colors for my 3rd districts, because my city's split up into 3 parts. But I asked my wife about the various colors, and all that, and she picked out some better ones for me, so.
Cool.
I'm working with, magenta and cyan now, and I think it's a lot better. I don't have a lot of fashion sense, so I trust her sense.
Yeah, no, Minecraft is a funny thing that way, because something can look ugly one day and the next day it's like, oh, actually, that's not so bad. Yeah. I had a world probably going back like maybe a year or so, but I had a world where I used red, yellow, black and white. Red, yellow, black and white, because those were in Native American tradition. Those were like north, south, east, west. I can't remember which one is which now.
But they were effectively cardinal colors.
But yeah, so I used those to sort of indicate like north was probably white for snow maybe. But anyways, yeah, I used those colors. But then
That's not a bad
include
color scheme.
Yellow is a color that you don't particularly like.
Well, yellow all by itself, like each one of my buildings is just, like a nice wood frame for it and a roof. And the walls are one color. And yellow works well in concert with others, but not by itself, I've found.
Okay.
It's like the white wool. It's just by itself. The white wool winds up looking dirty because of, like the woolly texture style they try and put in there.
Sure.
And so if I had just white walls, it's like, well, it's supposed to look whitewashed, but it just kind of looks dirty to me here.
Yeah.
But you put it next to some black, so you go with a checkerboard pattern, you don't even see the black on the white wool anymore. So it is something that works best with a range of colors.
Okay.
So
have you
I do know that much about fashion.
Well, yeah. You haven't been to the Nether, so you haven't got any quartz, which is very white. No. I'm thinking about putting in a nice little fortress somewhere out of the way. Just having my area to elsewhere in the world. So right now I'm just focusing on my own one little city. Although things are getting more dangerous for me. I'm taking all the various passages underground I'm finding and I'm filling them up because I got a lot of cobblestone, a lot of wood. So I'm just, turning the wood into charcoal and then, turning the cobblestone into regular stone. Oh, yeah.
And backfilling everything. But as that happens, there's less areas for the monsters to spawn, so I'm getting more monsters spawning on the surface.
Oh, yes.
So I'll be standing on top of my one building, and I'll look out, and I'm like, wow, that is a lot of creepers out there tonight. And it's like, well, that's because they're not spawning anywhere else. So I may have to take a brief pause as to what I'm doing just to create some monster slaughterhouses. I'm not proud of having to do that. But it would be nice to have more than 5 arrows at any given point in time. I haven't gotten around to properly making a nice chicken coop sort of style.
Right.
I was doing some work in the experimental mode for floating chickens, popping eggs down, and then just using those egg sources to slaughter chickens. But you helped me out with that before we started the recording. You helped tell me what the problem was with what I was trying out there.
Yes, the fact that baby chickens drown in any kind of water because they're not. I think it's a bug.
They're too small. Their hitbox doesn't allow them to go high enough over the water limit.
Yeah, even though sort of visually they are above it, but yeah.
So now I know, in a creative mode, I have accidentally slaughtered a lot of baby chicks for no real good reason.
Yeah.
Oops. But I suppose I'll take some time out and see what I can do about getting them to grow to mature chicken size, dumping them in the water, and then just having them swim there forever, which is apparently not as bad as letting them drown.
Yeah. Oh, have you seen in Minecraft, have you seen the new flying machines that people have been doing on YouTube?
No.
One of the most recent snapshots, it might be 2 ago or 3, but the slime blocks now, if you push them with pistons, they'll carry along any blocks that are touching them.
Oh.
So they'll bring them along with them. So
and these are the slime monsters, right?
Well, the blocks, like
the sticky piston style, or
well, have you? Maybe you're not even familiar with the slime blocks. You get 4 slime balls, or you get slime balls from slimes.
Yes.
And then you put them 4 in a little square.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like 2x2 square in your crafting area. You get a slime block.
Ooh.
And slime blocks have some interesting properties. They're bouncy.
Oh.
So you can bounce on them. If you put one on a piston at underneath you, like pointing up, and stand on it and activate it, then it'll shoot you up. I don't know.
Excellent.
Basically about as far as you can jump. But I think if you time your jump right, you can jump and get
do a
pushed.
big old Mario style.
Yeah,
jump.
get a super jump. So there's that, and there's also what I was saying about them sticking to other blocks. So you can actually push like a big like a clump of blocks with a piston now.
Oh.
So because you can do that, you can like loop it around so that they're attached to the same piston again. So the piston can be like push itself basically, and you can have a totally separate. It can be a flying machine or a car. Or I'm not sure if you can do a miner.
I definitely have to look into this. This sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, it's in one of the new snapshots. Basically.
I usually try not to look too deep into the snapshots because then I'm looking towards the future and I'm like, oh, now I'll have to play my modern game without all these wonderful advancements.
Do you have slimes in your world?
Potentially. It's a very dry continent for where I'm on right now, so there's not much for swamps for them. But they're always deep down enough underground.
Yep.
All you have to do is dig down far enough and you'll get there.
Yep.
But I haven't done that yet. I'm too busy on the surface making my houses look beautiful. Or what I think is beautiful. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. That's how it goes. So yeah, though, that's what I've been doing. And I'm just about ready to start trying to build a second story, onto my city. And hopefully they'll breed properly, because I'm still not certain whether or not I can use glass to make everything work properly for 2 levels as to whether or not they can reproduce.
Yeah.
Although I think if I can get them to breed properly in the one home I'm going to have them in, I'm going to seal them up in there, because I am sick and tired of those goblins hurting me, because I was upgrading the house and a villager walked right in front of where I was working and I accidentally hit them.
Oh, yes.
They have no real sense of justice, those golems. So I'm tired of that. I'll just build the rest of the city. I'll unblock the gates and just let them all come spilling out. By the hundreds by the time I'm done the second level, and that might be fairly interesting to have for a site. Just watch them go running out like some sort of clowns from a clown car. So, yeah, I can dig it.
Digging in Minecraft.
In other events this week, I watched a horror movie, which is not that surprising because I watch Svengoolie every week, and he does horror movies.
Yeah, okay. What did he bring you this week?
This week, this entire month, he's focusing on drive-in for stuff, like big stuff that was big drive-in movie theater movies. Mm-hmm. And this week was a British one called Island of Terror. There's a small island off the coast of Ireland called Petrie Island.
Okay.
Long story short, reclusive scientist, world-renowned but reclusive, tries to find a cure for cancer, which is apparently just one kind of cancer back then. There wasn't multiple types with multiple origins. So you could just solve cancer. It was one thing.
Okay, sure.
And he accidentally creates a creature that's, say, a little bit bigger than a dog. Had a tentacle, kind of looked amoeba-ish. Wound up effectively sucking the bones out of anything it came into contact with.
Oh, cool.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is it really got me, because... Well, I was wondering, is Island of Terror going to be like a big thing? Because I read my Ravenloft. I'm getting back into it. And whenever you have a domain in the middle of nowhere, it's surrounded by the mist, it's called an Island of Terror.
Ah.
So I'm like, oh, am I going to gain a greater insight to Ravenloft by watching this movie? Long answer short, no. It's just a really nice name for, isolation and fear. Okay. Island of Terror.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what happened, there was Svengoolie had to warn people, I gotta warn you, there's some sites you may not want to see. Don't let kids see this, and don't let those who are sensitive see this. Because, the concept of a human face without any bone structure behind it looks really creepy and ugly. And I gotta say, it was just a little rubber mask sort of thing, just they had a rubber body thing, you could move the arms and all that around, because there's no bones in there, right?
Oh, yeah,
basically
sure.
Like an empty skin thing.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it, wow, that is really ugly. But if this was a Ravenloft Island of Terror, they wouldn't be dead. The creature would suck out their bones, effectively. What it did was it dissolved the bones in there. The process was inherently lethal.
Mm-hmm.
It releases an enzyme, it gets the bone to, it's like a feeding source. And that's how it goes. You die, the horses die, whatever it has bone that it touches loses a bone and it dies. Mm-hmm. But in Ravenloft, they'd survive. They'd be like some ooze-like people gone entirely mad by this horribly unnatural ideal. And so you'd have like this island of terror where, you know, you've got all these insane blob people, you know, just going there. Maybe you have like a part of a town, everyone's locked in sort of thing, and you've got the real, like you're the hero, you got to try and get these people out to safety before the blob people and the Dark Lord of the Domain come and get you. In which case, I imagine the Dark Lord of the Domain, he would be like an ooze type person, like scientist, something goes wrong and he's an ooze, but he gains the ability to get his shape back as a person by sucking the bones out of another person. I suppose if he was to suck the bones out of a horse, he'd have like a really warped shape because the bones don't work right, you know.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think it'd be like he would sacrifice others to try and, you know, cure. He thinks he can cure himself, sort of thing, in my mind. And this would be like a really sweet thing. It'd be like, because it'd be really twisted. Because like, can you imagine like a bunch of jelly ooze-like people just come just go waddling after you, like, or like from Futurama with Dr. Zoidberg when he doesn't have his shell on, how he's all wobbly and extra pink.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a bunch of crazy, just gibbering, insane people just going nuts trying to attack anything? Oh, it's happening to me.
Okay. I don't know. I think I would enjoy being boneless if I could, like, you know, survive.
Well, it is an inherently painful process having your bones dissolve.
Well, okay, let's say that happened, and then I'm like, is it just constant pain all after that?
I would imagine constant pain, yes.
Okay.
There's organs that, you know, need support, and everything's not working right amongst each other.
Yeah, but what I mean, you
do like need to properly protect the nerves going inside your spine. So without the spine there to protect them, you're going to be feeling some awkward pain. It'd be kind of like pins and needles at best from all sorts of random areas because you got to move over to this side, and then they're no longer pinched nerves, and you're feeling, wow, that was really painful all over my legs. Ow.
Well, how are you even moving? Like, this is like, so I guess this is like supernatural or whatever.
Well, in this case, it'd be just, you know, like kind of moving sloppy. Like I'd make a template for it in 3rd edition, sort of thing, whereby you'd get half your movement rate. Nothing like flying or burrowing. That requires too much of a skeletal basis.
Yeah. You
might be able to convince on gliding for that, but then good luck getting that guy up into the tree.
I guess, like, your muscle... Yeah, you could sort of, like... There are muscles in the body that aren't attached to bones. Not too many, and they do very specialized things. But if you were... you could sort of move yourself along if you didn't have any bones.
Mind you, you'd be dead pretty quickly. The brain not having any proper casing would, in real life, say, no. You die pretty quickly as everything kind of folds in on itself there. But in this gothic horror thing, you know, they'd be kept alive for the purposes of like, oh my god, that's horrible.
Yeah.
And so you have this wonderful little island of terror with a bunch of insane, gibbering jelly people.
But it's not like, oh, this is the best thing ever, I can get through doors, like, or I can get through openings an inch wide now.
No, this would be like, oh my god, they really freaked me out. I'm here in this area, but I have to make sure everything is you know, as like almost airtight as possible, because they can get through.
Yeah.
And so you could have some good you know, like shock horror fun with that sort of thing. So yeah, it gave me a lot of good ideas, but I was able to clearly tell that this was British, and not just because everyone had a classy accent.
Okay.
Well, some of them had an Irish accent, which is still pretty classy, I think. But at one point I'm looking at this, I'm like, all this needs is Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor, and this whole thing's complete. It just the sense of style as to how the British make their movies.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it like a different brand of camera or something? Or?
It was not the camera itself per se, although you know, it's how they do their shots that also makes a bit of a difference. Mm-hmm. Their prop stuff, like the monsters, you know, it looked all the same way they make the monsters for like the Doctor Who stuff.
Okay.
It's just the subtle differences in there. There's some action-based differences. If it had been in America, sort of thing, everyone would have had a weapon when they go into like the scientist's house to see, you know, hey, can we use your laboratory facilities? And then they encounter like 5 people that have no bones, all corpses laying on the floor. And then, oh no, there's a monster. Yeah, whip out a gun, shoot them, blah, blah, blah. That's not what they tried to do.
Right.
When they see the monster, they try to flee. When they can't flee, oh, hey, there's like a fire axe over here, I'll try attacking it. That doesn't seem to work. Then they go back, or are able to properly retreat. They do stuff, like what they call them, petrol bombs, sort of thing, which is the gas, with a little hanky lighter sort of thing, and try that along with sticks of dynamite.
So Molotov cocktails.
Effectively, yes.
Okay.
But it's how they just decided to not focus with guns first, and that first thing is try and get yourself to safety and flee. Then defend yourself. Failing, that you can't do those properly, then you go on the offensive, and that would be really kind of weird to see in an American, like a zombie film. It's just like, okay, I'll attack you with this chair, bam, 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 I smack the zombie around. No, in a British film, they try and flee the crazy corpse that's moving and doesn't know enough to stay still, because corpses shouldn't be moving.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting as to just being able to note, I could have had this thing on mute and being able to tell this is British sci-fi. Weird.
It reminds me of every once in a while. Now I don't know.
I suppose Lister could have showed up too from Red Dwarf, but that's another thing.
I don't know if this is getting too dark, but it reminds me every time I read about the police going too far or shooting someone prematurely in the U.S. I always think of my gaming groups. I always think, and let's see, I should be more delicate about that. But anyways, for some reason, gaming groups are always the same. They respond in a similar way to these police who handle things all wrong, and end up shooting somebody who they shouldn't have shot. And it's D&D groups, often same script. It's pull a gun and just when you probably should be that's the victim, not the attacker. It's just shoot them both.
I will admit, there's a different sense of style, especially between some genres, the Call of Cthulhu's done by Chaosium. When you encountered a zombie there, it was flee. But when they did the D20 version of it, it was reload. And so maybe it was just the game itself that it was promoting a shoot 'em first mentality. Maybe it was just a bit of an Americanism in the gaming group.
Probably. I mean, role-playing games are very American, aren't they? I mean, definitely Europeans play them, but seems to be an American phenomenon.
Especially with the shoot-first attitude that it tends to engender. It's very combat-oriented. As opposed to you all survived, so gain a level. As opposed to you killed this much and you looted that.
Yeah, and I suppose if we're talking about European sort of gaming, it's often the board games and the that Euro game sort of style, as opposed to the role-playing game.
Settlers of Catan, where the only real enemy you have is that guy who keeps putting your robber on your best land. Rah.
Yeah. And sometimes they're cooperative. In some ways, they're often... Well, you can trade and stuff, so there's often cooperative
I do know
elements.
when you play the game Zombies, it is two different games. Whether or not you're trying to, work all together, or it's every man for themselves.
Yeah.
Because if you try every man for yourself, no one gets the kills enough to say they won the game. No one ever gets to the helipad. But when you're all working together... It's a completely different style, and it's if you just append the rule to if everybody can get to the helipad on the same turn, everyone escapes. And if you just append it that one little rule there, you can make it a very cooperative game, and it just definitely change the pace. Okay, I've got 5 hearts and 5 bullets. That's the max I can have. You're looking a little low. I'll clear out the zombies in this square. You grab the bullets and the health, and then you help cover me should the situation reverse. It's very nice that way, to see. Although sometimes it is fun to have the, screw over everyone else at the table sort of style.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, I quite like the movie, the Island of Terror.
Island of Terror, People Without Bones.
Well, not just people, they had horses too.
Okay, horses without bones.
And cattle towards the end. It was kind of creepy. They're definitely good. Don't let kids see this thing, because that one farmer's boneless face. That was nasty, man.
Yeah.
And yet, it would have been even worse if he was gibbering and moving and coming at you. So, that's why I was thinking, that would work for Ravenloft.
Yeah.
An island of terror, as inspired by the movie Island of Terror. That's it. I have been doing more reading into Ravenloft, and that'll actually seg into our main little topic for this week. Because as I was reading, I mentioned last week the weird character Von Karkov, who was initially like a panther who was used as like a sleeper agent, and then he wound up becoming a vampire later on, and so he's a mix between beast, vampire, human. And I really got a good chance to truly understand who he was. I was able to get... the site is the Fraternity of Shadows, and these people had the rights to do the second edition, like, fan brew canon, and it was considered canon. And so you go to their website, the Mystopedia, as they call it.
Okay.
And they'll just direct you to the proper links and the proper netbooks that they have out there. And so his thing was that he was a beast that wanted to be a man. But whenever it was very convenient for him to become a beast and maul the crap out of whatever was in his way, he would do so.
Yeah.
And so the myths were effectively trying to teach him the lesson that if you want to be a real boy, you got to be a real boy even when it's not easy. You want the highs, you got to deal with the lows. You can't just switch back and forth and say, I wish I could be a full human all the time. But you're causing me problems, so I'm going to turn into a panther and maul you. So yeah, they were trying to teach him that lesson.
Okay.
And so he's one of the earlier realms that forms as, they call it the spreading stain, as it's not just Barovia in the myths, it's all these lands that wind up becoming connected. And his winds up like being like an appendix jutted out in the middle of nowhere. It's the hinterlands. It doesn't go to any other realms. There's not much going on there. And, well, when the Grand Conjunction comes, it moves 90 degrees, but it doesn't actually move 90 degrees. The terrain changes, but the cities and all that stay the same. So it's like taking a map on like a rocky table and then moving that. If you can get like some sort of drop cloth, that just applies over top of the landscape.
Okay, yeah.
Which is really weird when you think about it, but also kind of awesome.
Sure.
And that's the only thing that really happens. Other than that, he takes his bride every year. She does not survive the first wedding night. And he just basically, rules one corner of the core of Ravenloft. And nobody ever goes there. Nothing ever happens there. And he's basically ignored for several hundred years. And he can do that because he's a vampire, No one questions this sort of thing because... you want to get mauled by panthers? No, don't question. Done.
Yeah.
And so that brings me to one point. It's like, this guy had some nice potential. Like, you could have a thing like trying to escape, a would-be bride escape out of his domain sort of thing. Now, he can technically close the domain borders to make sure no one gets in or out, but... if he is unaware, like if you steal her quickly away in the night and send, like an empty carriage going up to, Castle Pantara, which is still an awesome, awesome name for a castle, I gotta say.
Okay.
Well, it just screams like 80s hair metal band.
Yeah.
It's like going to Castle Poison!
Yeah.
Castle Rat! I don't know. Something about that for me, I don't know. Castle Guns N' Roses! I don't know. But, as you send like the empty carriage up there, as you secret her away across the border, and maybe he's got like some of his secret panther, were-panther police sort of thing chasing after you, and you got to make your haste to the exit sort of thing with these horrible howling beasts chasing after you. That sounds like a good plot to me. But officially nothing has really ever happened there. Things happen elsewhere, big things, grand conjunctions. Domains just go blip, just like hey, there's nowhere to the east anymore. It's a big hole now. Well, I guess we better close the road. Other than that, okay. So big things happen elsewhere, but nothing happens there. And that seems like a dropped ball, or I suppose like when those people are doing those spinning plates. It's like someone just decided like, okay, I got other plates here that are bigger and fancier. I'll just let this one drop. No one cares about that. It's a paper plate. No one cares about that one.
Yeah, okay.
And so that strikes me as this like kind of sad because, well, one, Ravenloft was always like a shared setting, like everyone works together to play. You bring in from different campaign settings to stitch together a really creepy little world. And there's some very good things going on there, and there's a lot of different authors working, with different fun little stories and concepts. but no one wanted to pick up that ball. No one wanted to keep spinning that one plate. And I notice that happens from time to time in other big stories, like, this character is much more interesting to write about. I'll write about them, and then you kind of forget about this person. Like, The Simpsons have been doing that for years. Like, they basically decided they can tell all the stories they can about the Simpson family themselves. Let's bring this person in, and all of a sudden, comic book guy gets a couple seasons where he's big and popular, or Sherry and Terry the twins are being used more often, and then they just fade back into the background again as they keep telling more stories and all that. Whereas in this case, it's just like, I don't know what else to tell about this guy. I don't want to go over there to imagine something fun or exciting happening. No one really needs to go there. Let's ignore it. Have you encountered that an awful lot in your reading and in your various travels through the fiction universe?
Well, I have, and I think I have a little bit of a different take on it because, well, for one thing, I mean, yes, we have a lot of writers and a lot of people working on the game world, but also they're finite, so they can't necessarily tell every story. And also, like, there's a problem when it's like, okay, you have this realm that has this characteristics. Like, this is the werewolf realm, this other realm is the vampire realm, this realm is the realm where they have special kind of mountains. And so they're kind of themed. And I suppose the werewolf realm, if it turned out to be a little bit too similar themed to, like, the vampire realm, then it might be like, well, we can't just tell the same story again.
Shake things up a bit. Do it a little differently. Really delve into the mind of a werewolf.
Yeah, so that's one reason to sort of leave it to the side until... I always feel like it's never really like that they never touch it. Although at some point, it's, attention on the entire world sort of wanes. But yeah, it's like, well, we'll hold that off on that story until we have something actually sort of unique to tell, rather than just repeat the same story that we told from another realm. So there's that.
So maybe in that case, it's just that the character is too different and complex. He's the panther that is a man that is also a vampire. So sometimes he's a vampire, sometimes he's like a vampiric panther, sometimes he's a vampiric person. And so there's maybe just too many flavors in the pot to bring in easy attention.
Yeah, and I guess that's one thing, because if you wanted to sit down and be like, okay, who's this character, you probably could tell a decent story, and you could differentiate it from what else is out there in the Ravenloft setting, but that would, that's work, that's creative, that's brain thinking.
On the other hand, if you can create a story out of something where everyone says, oh yeah, whatever, out there, and they're like, oh, I'm turning my attention here, now this has got my eye. Yeah. Doesn't that say something about the quality of you as a writer? Like, wasn't this like a potential, like, look at this, it's boring, can you make it interesting? And then everyone just says, whatever. Well, someone comes in and says, I've got a wonderful story to tell about the Castle Pantara and the wonderful beasts and monsters, both man and supernatural within. And it's like everyone's like, oh, Castle Pantara, I got to do my adventure over there now. Nobody decided to take up on that.
Well, I think you're absolutely right in that there's opportunity there, and there's an opening for, if somebody wanted to sort of create something new and interesting and unique, there's space to create, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, every realm in Ravenloft has some aspect of that space. Like, every realm had to have its story told at some point.
Oh, so, yes, and that's some of the fun of the good old Ravenloft stuff. Is not only that, but all the best ones have like a counterpart to other fiction or to reality sort of thing. Like there is what they call a mist way. A very good chance if you go this way into the mist, you will come out at this point. So, poor ones have like a 20% chance. Decent ones have a 50% chance. Great ones, very rare, have like an 80% chance. Like 8 times out of 10, you go through here, you're going to wind up at this place. And so the realm of Valakshan is what it is. If you go like southwest out of the bottom there, you will go to Odier, which is basically like the evil Pinocchio realm. And that's the thing is how do you describe it? Well, that's evil Pinocchio realm.
Yeah, well, each one has its story. Yeah.
You go just offside of the center of it, you've got the realm of Borca, which is based off of like the Borgias, like Lucretia Borgia, and people like nobles poisoning each other and decadence, and and all that fun stuff that you can tell for like the what happens when civilization kind of starts folding in on itself and things get really creepy amongst the inbred nobility. Whereas you go over to see it's Mordant, and then it has like your pastoral English countryside and all the wonderful ghost stories about like the haunted house on the hill sort of thing, and that has its flavor there, and it has its clear analogs. You've got your Frankenstein, your Dracula, your few different kinds of beasts and all that, and everything has like a nice counterpart to other fiction. So I guess you could see it kind of as like the the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen before that came about. It's like, well, you know what, they did it as like some sort of fan fiction setting. This is kind of a nice gothic patch, like quilt style going on here.
Well, sure, it's like a monster team up so
in this case, poor von Karkov, he just doesn't have that counterpart. It's like, this is the realm of Frankenstein and his monster. I totally get the story going on. I could just pick this up and run with it. Von Karkov, he's the panther vampire person. I don't recall a Victorian era story on this, but so what's going on up north here? Oh, hey, pastoral countryside. Oh, let's go with Ghosts on the Hill. Yeah.
So there's that. So there's lots of different stories to tell. So, picking from them, there might be some that are chosen less often than others.
And there was
some
very important stories being told through Ravenloft, too.
Okay.
The whole bit with Vecna and 3rd edition coming about started in Ravenloft.
Okay.
I have Die Vecna Die up on my shelf. Great adventure. I would love to run it sometime, even if I have to modify it from 2nd to 3rd edition. But basically, they pull in the demigod Vecna and his lieutenant Kaz, and they put them in a small little 2-domain cluster where they're eternally fighting each other. Unfortunately, the dark powers that are the Mists bite off more they can chew. One, because if you look at Vecna's stats, it's 25 down the board for all his stats, because stats didn't go any higher than 25 in 2nd edition. If they went higher, he'd have had them higher. But yeah, it's kind of weird when the Necromancer Leash has strength 25. But he's a demigod. But yeah, not too long after they pull him in, and he gets that wonderful nickname, the Chained God, he busts out. They got powerful forces in Ravenloft, but nothing on his scale. So he just basically brute forces his way straight out. And with that, he kills Ayaz the demigod from the Greyhawk realm. And he manages to ascend to a greater power as he goes to Sigil in the Planescape setting. And he's a god in the City of Portals where there's not supposed to be any divine force. And so he starts remaking reality to his whims, and that changes reality from 2nd to 3rd edition.
Yeah.
That's how 3rd edition came about.
Sure.
And it started
lore-wise, yeah.
Yeah, and it started in the Ravenloft stuff. Like, they planned this sort of thing. Like, how do we explain how these changes happen? And they're like, Vecna finally gets his way. How do we start this off? Well, let's put him here, and up he goes. So, Ravenloft did have some very important stories, like, to the Great Wheel cosmology, important stories to tell. So I can understand why nobody picked up von Karkov when they were working over there. It's like, okay, we're preparing for 3rd edition. We got to write a nice way for transitioning. Let's do this. Let's do this. I mean, he's a small player. We'll put him on the side. We're working on big projects, big swaths, big paint swaths going on here. No time for the little guy. And so I can dig that. But it still strikes me as odd that in a thing, especially where anybody who was good enough to write and get picked up by the Fraternity of Shadows could have done something there. Nothing got picked up. Like every once in a while they released the Gazetteer, which is just a little PDF they put out of like, oh, here's some nice possibilities of this spot, and wonderful stories you can do, and here's some stats for monsters and beasts and horrible things going on. You can have your characters go, and here's a nice little mini campaign for you. Here's at least the structure of it. Nobody ever picked up anything there, and that struck me as like, there's got to be something fundamentally wrong if it's, here's the story of the beast that becomes a man, that becomes a vampire, who gets his own realm for being so evil and hypocritical, if nothing else, is the big thing. Like, if they were to pick up that as a theme, like, if you go to this place, everyone's a freaking hypocrite. I think that might be able to help out more. but not enough people get it. Like, I did not get the realm and the nature of its ruler until it was basically spelled out for me when I was reading an illustrated guide to the core. Wherein, the guy goes, on a brief tangent, this is considered like the hinterlands, and nothing ever happens here, and the players basically have that as a running joke. Nothing happens.
Okay.
And so, until it got explained to me, I was like, oh, well, hypocrites for everything, like double-faced people. I mean, that especially with von Karkov, because he's got panther face, human face, vampire face. So you could really work on that as a theme, but nobody's picked up on that, despite the fact that is him. So is it something like his character is, could it be considered first that his character is just so comedic in its own sense, like nothing happens here, and so we'll do that running joke of no one even gives a darn whether it's there or not. Could that be considered like a reason why people don't go back to it?
The running joke thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say another theory, similar along that line, is that it's not a running joke, but it is a self-fulfilling prophecy in that maybe, how the outer planes are affected by what people think of them, sort of by beliefs and stuff. So maybe Ravenloft has a hint of that, and I think we've seen that occasionally.
Ravenloft has an interesting thing, Strahd originally went through a ritual called I Am the Land. Mm-hmm. In which case he became so connected to the land, whereas the myths had previously pulled in figures. They didn't have anything that was so tied to the land that they could pull an entire geographic landscape in with it. So once he did the ritual, they were able to pull in the first of the realms. And so in that case, it's not more of a self-fulfilling prophecy with the same as the outer planes. It's that the Dark Lord has his mirror in the land about him. Although there's various nice sympathetic magics, is what they call the style there.
Okay, so it may just be that that particular land, its aspect might be its uneventfulness, and it might even be the case that events do occasionally happen there. Like you could write in a story and say, oh well, this happened in the hinterlands this year, and that this and that, and this guy invaded or didn't invade, and then after that, it just goes back to being uneventful, which is not too different from some of what happens to some of the other realms, because the other realms are like, something big happens, and then, okay, well, that, the shift happened, and now sort of things settle down a little for a while until the next big event. But it might just be, like, this is sort of confirmation bias. This is what we see sort of in real life a little bit, in that we sort of perceive, like Canada,
everyone is just uncompromisingly polite.
Well, Canada, especially as a very boring place, that's sort of our reputation. So whenever we see a story about Canadians being sort of boring and mundanely polite and generally well-behaved, we're like, yeah, that's what Canada's like. But when we see like Justin Bieber misbehaving, everyone's like, those darn Americans, because they think he's an American.
Are those darn Canadians, what the heck are they doing? They let their one bad Canadian out down here to America.
Yeah, so...
Oh, but if Justin Bieber's listening to this, we don't believe that's truly you. That's just a media hyper-portrayal.
It's his doppelganger, his evil twin.
Well, that's the thing, is the media is not necessarily, without its bias, because they're always out to tell a story. Yeah. And if he gets the viewers, then they'll tell a story about him, so...
Well, and that's the thing, like, also the thing about Mayor Rob Ford, too, to get more about Canada, is that it's set against this backdrop of Canada being an uneventful, boring place.
And that's why a lot of the American late-night comedians really latched onto it. It's like, he's a Canadian and he's this kind of person?
And when
do they have this kind of person in Canada?
And I should, I'll point out, in the reality, Canada and the States are statistically, slightly different. We have slightly different crime rates and slightly different laws.
Less shootings because, gun control and all that.
But in reality, we're very close. Like, the two countries are very similar, and pretty much very similar stories happen on both sides of the border. It's just that Canada is sort of perceived as this boring place, and I think that can be one explanation for why.
Between you and me, I blame Saskatchewan and Manitoba. They're right there, like just offside of center, and I mean, have you ever been to Winnipeg?
Well, I haven't, no. So
that's the thing. I've been told it's so boring. You may have been to Winnipeg and just forgotten everything.
I flew over Winnipeg on my way to Ontario.
And that's the best thing you can say about it.
Flyover states. Which is...
so yeah, maybe it's the people that wind up going there and they look over and it's like, wow, Saskatchewan is so bland. It's like so flat, and it's even a rectangle. That is the most boring shape for any state to be in. Oh, province? Okay, province, so you got a different name for them. So it's just a nice rectangle, and it's flat. Oh my goodness, you guys are so boring. And then they just apply that to the rest of Canada because they got too bored to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's probably the case.
Although, if you do go to Quebec, we do have a wonderful artsy scene there. So the land may be boring, but at least the people are entertaining there.
Okay, so leads... So this might be an explanation why Hinterlands is perceived as boring in the setting, is it's just that's how people perceive it, and they sort of tell stories against that backdrop. Even if something interesting did happen there, it'd be like, oh, something finally interesting finally happened there.
Finally! It's been so many 100 years!
So there's that explanation.
Interesting.
But there's also, like, it might just have a smaller population. That's another, like...
Well, that's the thing, is some of these places, only have a where Frankenstein's monster is. He's just called Adam, by the way. But,
right.
The Frankenstein analog, in the entire nation there's only about 3,000 people. That's it. It's not that big and not that bad a place. It's, just 3,000 people for the entire location.
Well, probably less things should be happening there then.
Well, it said you do have a crazy scientist doing horrible, horrible things. I mean, in one of the neighboring realms, they've got a criminal mastermind called the Brain. And that's basically what he is a brain in a jar. He's a semi-successful experiment caused by the Dr. Mordenheim. So
let me ask you this question then.
All right.
Do you think, like, sort of in Ravenloft, like if you were living in that world, in-world reality, do you think that just as many stories actually do happen and we just haven't received them through, like, our fiction? Or do you think that it really is less eventful there?
In the higher culture areas, a lot of stuff gets dismissed as being backwards country folk stuff.
Yeah.
Like, when you go over to Mordant versus Valakon, I can never pronounce it right, by the way. You got to have a nice Hungarian accent to pronounce a lot of these places correct. So sorry if I'm not doing it consistently. I'm not native Hungarian tongue. It's difficult.
Okay, I don't even know what that would begin to sound like, but it's okay.
Guttural and rich. That is the best way to describe it. But the people in Mordant are of a higher, civilization, point sort of thing. So they're working with like muskets, whereas von Karkov's people are doing pitchforks and swords still. It's a thing. But the Mordant people will look over... Like, there's not a lot of people in either of these places. They'll look down to their neighbors to the south and go, those primitive rustic people, they have the white fever. They've never been able to get rid of it. It's just an intermittent fever that makes people all pale for a couple of days and they get better. Spoiler alert, not really, because they always mention it in every one of the splat books involving it.
Okay.
Von Karkov does not feed deeply enough to kill his victims. He just sips from them a little bit. And so they'll wind up like, oh, I'm a little pale. I'm feeling a little lethargic. I guess it must be a little bit of the white fever.
Oh.
They just had like a pint drink.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe that's why nothing really happens there. I mean, this guy is so passive and tame, he doesn't even drink a person to death. He just sips on them till they get weak and then he goes off to like the guy down, the street, and then this one town winds up having almost a small case of it. There's been like 4 people, coming out with it like every day for about a week. Things got better though. I hear it's spread down to the neighboring town though. Gotta be careful. Let's make sure we all wear some nice little scarves around us to make sure we don't spread this disease. Oh hey, it goes away. So maybe it's a little bit more subtle on there, and maybe the people just don't want to be writing something so very subtle that the peasant folk are going to mistake everything for natural causes. Yep.
Okay, so we've gone over a couple theories. The next theory that I'll introduce is the conspiracy theory, in that there really is something going on, something big behind the scenes, but it doesn't get reported. Or we've talked about altering memories before. Maybe it's simply that everybody's memory, like big things really do happen, but people forget as soon as it does.
Or, as a slight alternative to this, it's in the next, say, 25 years of in-game time, there shall be the time of unparalleled darkness. And one person presented some fun stuff as to what could be happening there, based on what the people had planned. Like I had this in my notes for what I was going to try and do, and he cobbled everything together. The fun bit was like, if you go all the way far up north to the realm of Darkon, we're going to say that this lich here has nothing to do with it. Why? Well, first he caused the two previous big things that happened, so why have all the spotlight on him? And two, wouldn't it be great if the powers of the great mists of Ravenloft decide that he is nothing more than just a sideshow entertainment before the real important things happen? His ego just couldn't take that. He'd be shattered by the concept that for all his power, he's just a little side entertainment. And so they're saying like the various roles of importance and what happens. And so it might be that Valachan happens to be very important. Like this is where something happens, and that's why it still exists. It's the only reason it exists is because something important has to happen here. The Von Karkov is just the right combination of these factors to be the only thing that could make this happen. So that the prophecy for the unparalleled darkness can only come true if he's there. Why is he being around there for 100 years with nothing happening? Just waiting for the right time.
Well, it makes sense to me because also what happens is the spotlight. Yeah, you were saying about the spotlight. It moves from place to place. Like something exciting over here, over here, over here. It doesn't burn consistently bright in one area, although it can for a while, but then it sort of moves off a little bit.
In this case, it would be like the first rule of stage magic, misdirection. If you want to do something with your left hand, show everybody your right hand and make a good scene of it, and then do something with your left hand so they don't see what's going on.
Yeah.
In which case, the big events happening elsewhere, the big things that everyone seems interested about, that's only to distract your attention. So those who are aware of the mists of Ravenloft and the fact that they have dark, sinister plans, they're looking for stuff here and there, and the Ravenloft stuff is doing the distraction. Oh, wonderful monsters over here. This place in the middle of the Korg is now an island off to the side. Meanwhile, the real stuff is happening down there in Valachan. And that's where the real thing is happening. So you got to look where the attention isn't. In that case. In which case, that would be a masterstroke, but there's no evidence that that's what anyone was actually planning.
Oh. Well, who cares about evidence? I mean, okay, so new theory.
Okay.
And I think most gaming worlds that people write a book about, here's Eberron, here's Forgotten Realms, here's this and that. They usually will include areas of the game world that are like us. Like we publishers have decided not to touch this because it's supposed to be, the player's world, and if some GM wants to come up with something that happens there, that's sort of where they can go. So that's intentionally left almost like a beacon or a player-created
starting zone, in which case that works out wonderfully.
Yeah.
There are threats, but the villain, despite being evil, is still civil enough not to just be killing off his peasants, because there are some places it does not pay to be a sentient creature.
Yeah.
There are places just off to like the west and slightly northwest of him where if you are a human being, you will be hunted like a deer. Like there's the evil, like wolf god cult, and the werewolves there, they take sport in hunting. In the greatest game there is mankind. No. For them, it's a passing distraction. They really like hunting bears, but they hate people, so they'll hunt you just for the fun of it. And in which case, yeah. And this is a place where it's dangerous as Ravenloft, always is.
Yeah.
But it's not so overtly lethal that you don't have to worry. This is considered like the starting zone.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, there may be some other small areas in Ravenloft where you can start off and not necessarily immediately die.
Daemon Liu and some of the other cultured parts work well. I'd be careful about eating anything in Borca. They got a lot of poisonous stuff there. Don't eat the random plants on the side of the road. Traveler's advice for you.
Right. Yeah.
They look good. They look sticky sweet. But there's a poison in it.
So you need that sort of area, and it's funny because like in sort of like non-Ravenloft worlds, you might have vast swaths of territory that are simply not described or nothing ever happens there because it's an entire planet-sized campaign world, right?
Oh yeah, especially with Eberron, they had multiple continents and all stuff going on here and there.
Yeah. So they have lots of that space, but Ravenloft is very compact, and it only has what's important. It only contains sort of, everything needed for the plot.
Well, the core at least has a lot of compactness.
Yeah.
The weird nature of it is that anyone can just be walking through the mist, and you can be any sort of wonderfully horrible land. You can just randomly, just encounter, and that's makes it both compact, claustrophobically so. Mm-hmm. Especially given the nature of going out in the mist is pretty scary, and you got to be a bold soul to do that. But also with the whole thing is that it's also immeasurably expansive at the same time, because who knows what else is out there. There's places that have never been featured in a Splat book, never been featured in the Gazetteers, realms unknown to the civilized minds of men.
Well, could there be like entire empires and continents out there?
Well, that's the thing is they had a fan-based one. They wanted to come up with something not quite as big as the core, but similar in nature to it. A bunch of places, like a rather large cluster, but larger than most clusters normally are. More than 3 or 4 realms. And so they called it the Hub. I haven't seen too much of it. I'm not 100% as on board with the Hub as I am the core. They do have some very nice ideas about stuff, though. There's one realm where it's effectively an analog to the French Revolution, in which case the Dark Lord is the personification of Madame Guillotine. In which case, anytime you're near a guillotine, you want to behead somebody. You are compelled to find someone you don't like and put them on the block.
Okay.
And I find that interesting.
Yeah.
I find that almost worthy of including in the core itself, because it matches with the nice history analogs that some of the more cultured places have. Like Borca, the poison-filled place I mentioned earlier, has a wonderful analog to Romania and Italy back when the Borgias were poisoning whoever the heck they felt like. And so there are some nice real-world historical counterparts there. And yeah, a French Revolution place undergoing, like a period of prolonged anarchy and revolution, that would work out very nice in a few spots. Just wedge it in here or there. No one will mind. It's Ravenloft. You could effectively crack that thing in half like an egg, put it in an extension in the middle, and call it done. And people would be like, oh, so that happened again. Interesting. And then go on with their lives.
Yeah.
So, it's a weird, fun little place sometimes that way. But yeah, I would like to see that in there. Other places, not so big on, or at least they haven't been able to draw me in so compellingly. Like, oh, I kind of like what's going on here. You've done some interesting things. So there's some fan-made stuff. But conceivably, yes, there are other areas like Ravenloft in size and expanse that just haven't been traveled to by those who know of this area.
Okay.
Or have never made it back to tell the story. It is Ravenloft. It's pretty dangerous. That's how things go.
And my final sort of theory, I think it's my final theory on like why an area would be sort of glossed over or not really talked about, is that not only is it flyover country, which is
kind of hard briefly, in this case. It's the corner.
Or never fly over country, or just never go to country. Sort of, it doesn't lead anywhere.
It's the sticks.
The bridge to nowhere. So, by flyover country, I sort of mean you might pass over. It's on the map, but it's not. Yeah, it's not really there. So that's simply all that does is that puts space between the other interesting places, or it fills out a corner of the map rather than just making it ocean. And like, why not? Why isn't the ocean developed more? Why aren't there underwater kingdoms? I've asked this about every...
There is potential for an underwater kingdom called the Drowning Deeps. I haven't read up much of it. It's mostly fan-based stuff, but I do like the concept. At least for the amount of potential it has. In which case, it would be a weird stack domain. The waters up top are like, we'll say, for the Sea of Sorrows on the western side.
Okay.
It's effectively owned by a ghost ship captain. he basically sacrificed his sailors during a particularly bad storm to whichever force would listen to him to keep his boat afloat. And the realms decided, wow, that is wonderfully evil. Come on in, buddy. You get your own realm. You're a ghost ship, and so your ship, the Relentless, will forever sail. You will never die, and you will forever take people to wonderful spots. Although he does get some interesting out of Ravenloft uses. For a while, they were having fun things like, if something bad is going to happen in Ravenloft, outside of Ravenloft, like, this natural disaster is going to befall the Forgotten Realms, you will find Ravenloft's the Relentless ghost ship sailing the seas. So you could for a person who's big, in working between realms or wants to tell a good story, not in Ravenloft, they could say the ghost ship known as the Relentless has been seen sailing the seas. Everyone knows this is a bad omen indeed. You never encounter the ship, but the rumor of it being there in another place allows you to say, wow, big bad things are going to wind up happening. So he winds up doing some interesting dual role stuff and having a really nice extra flavor comparison, at least back in 2nd edition.
Okay, so that's one thing done with the ocean. But the thing about, what often oceans do is they put space between realms.
Which is interesting because in Ravenloft they wind up just being the two sides. You go far enough west and far enough east, you hit waters, which are for a while it was incredibly dangerous because there'd be like one place up north, one place down south, and then there's a big mist-shrouded nowhere in the center. So if you want to sail a ship, there's no stars in the sea up there. There's no moon, so you have to sail based on, I think we've gone this far in this direction, fingers crossed, and let's try and avoid the mists to make it for sailing to this other realm, at least until the middle realm popped in and then things got a little safer for trade ships.
Yeah. Ravenloft doesn't seem to have a lot of flyover country, and I mentioned that tangentially with another point, but that's something that works in other campaign settings because it's like, well, I need this country over here, I need this other country over here to be far apart. So what's in between them? Well, it's a country that sort of people just walk through and never really stop because maybe it's a desert or something.
Well, mind you, in the earlier days of Ravenloft, before the big Grand Conjunction, you had Darkon in the north and Barovia in the south, and these were both populated places. How do you get from north to south? Like, what's connecting them? And you had the mountain domain of Arak. Not Iraq, A-R-A-K, Arak.
Okay, Arak.
And that was where you basically had, like, shadow, drow elf sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
But this was not a good land to travel through.
Yeah.
And so it wound up like, well, why aren't we having more trade between these realms? It's like scary, horrible, incredibly bored drow elves effectively just wanting to kidnap people for torture and other, horrible uses. And that's kind of why nobody trades that way.
Okay.
And so in which case, rather than just having it be flyover country, it was the active impediment. Like, this is the equivalent of a big mountain range you can't get past.
Yeah.
It's just really, really dangerous to do so. You got to really make sure you want to get to these Darkanese spices, books, whatever the heck you're traveling for.
Mm-hmm. So there's flyover country, but now if you look at the temporal element, and this is where it's sort of the D&D fantasy world comes into it, because there are countries that, or there are people, vampires, dragons, other kinds of monsters who live hundreds of years, thousands of years even.
Especially, in Ravenloft, there's not so much for dragons, but you do get a lot of vampires that are pretty dang old.
Yeah, so it's almost like time over country, where you simply need, like, in order to have these people who have these extremely long lifespans, it's like, I've ruled this kingdom for 1,000 years. Well, what can really happen? Like, if the same guy is in charge for a whole 1,000 years, it can't have been that eventful. Otherwise, he would have got, something would have happened to him.
Well, things do happen. Like, for a long time, it was just Barovia.
Mm-hmm.
And Strahd always ruled Barovia, although he claims himself to be, every once in a while, to be the descendant of the previous von Zarovich family. And everyone seems to buy it, because, dude, don't question. People who question disappear. Don't question. But every generation, the lady he loved, Tatiana, her soul reincarnates. And so, he's always searching for the reincarnation of his lost love, the youth and beauty that he wanted so badly he killed his brother and everyone else at the wedding reception to try and get. And so things would continuously happen there, but it was the same story told over and over again. Which worked for the purpose of the original Castle Ravenloft module. You could tell that time and again, and it'd just be the next generation, same sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
And then they decided, hey, this is kind of good, let's take some of these other sort of things that happen and then put them all together. But that said, the first realm that popped in next to him was called Forlorn. And it's a small realm. Nothing ever really happens there. They have goblins, but not real goblins. Goblins spelled with a Y. There's a reason
Yoblins?
Well, that's the thing, is they're pronounced goblins, but they're an alchemical creation. And the guy who originally wrote the recipe wrote highly with Draconic language, and Draconic doesn't have a Y. Have an I, it has just Ys for that. And so every time he wrote, wherever there would be an I, it would be a Y. And so they're pronounced the same, but because of how they're created, the spelling is different. But that's ruled by a person who's like sometimes like a vampire, sometimes a ghost, depending on what time of the day or night it is. And so he's making these goblins to destroy the force around his place. But despite the fact he was the next realm to pop in and stay there, nothing has really ever... Well, initially, anybody that was not a goblin decided to book it over into to Barovia and just start a new town there, because they don't want to be in this. This place is crazy. This place is horrible lifestyle. Yeah. You've got a horrible tyrant? Okay, but he's not actively going to kill you if you're just a decent person? Guess we're tax-paying citizens now. Ha-ha. And so the wonderful little place of Forlorn has been attempted deforested for a very long time, but they've never deforested the entire thing. Maybe because there's some druids, working as like a countercurrent underclass thing. But it's another area where they had a nice initial story, but nothing ever seems to happen. But that has an important aspect in it.
Okay.
The castle at the center where the guy, the Dark Lord lives, extends into different time periods, each to do with his life. And so conceptually, you can time travel to different areas of Ravenloft that way. To the far future, which is a very grim place indeed. So, if that future, and this is by Ravenloft standards, a very grim, horrible place indeed, means, oh my goodness, that time of unparalleled darkness is going to be a nasty thing. And the various other points in the castle's history. So if you can really solve the riddle of how to solve things there, you could potentially unmake a lot of Ravenloft. So this has ominous potential for this castle here. And so, the realm doesn't do anything. Its very presence is ominous, but there's nothing like that described of in Castle Pantara and its neighboring area. Which would be nice if someone was to say, oh, but this place might be potentially important because this big ominous thing happens. No. Oh.
Okay.
But okay, now here's the thing. When you have so many people, especially fan-based people, who are working on stuff, don't you think there should be some plan to cast a wide net? Okay, everyone's working on something. Can we make sure that we're all not working on the same thing to create conflicting stories? Because that's happened. If you go over to the east, the place of Nova Vasa has many different stories as to how the Dark Lord came to be and what the heck's going on there, all of which conflict with each other. They're not even certain how many moons are over there. Sometimes they say there's 5 moons in the sky. Sometimes it's the same as the rest of the core. And that came about because nobody was coordinating it for the official stuff. So don't you think with the fans, it may have behooved them to say, okay, we're going to have this person writing the story. If you have some ideas, this person is going to be the head of the Borkin storyline development. If you want to write something, contact them and make sure it all meshes together with what everyone else is doing with this spot. And otherwise, just try and find a new area and just spread out and try and get to these corners and these nooks and crannies of the world.
No, I don't think that. At least not for Ravenloft. I think for some campaign settings, I think that's a really cool thing to do, to coordinate with everybody who's writing, including fans and
especially the authors who are doing the books.
And set down an established canon and no time travel allowed.
Well, that's the odd thing about Ravenloft. Time travel winds up becoming a big thing. The Grand Conjunction happened because they time traveled back and took an important artifact out of the original Castle Ravenloft on the Prime Material world, which meant that when they won, there's only one good vampire in all of Forgotten Realms. So he was not able to get the holy symbol, so he could wind up fighting, and then it causes a temporal paradox that almost winds up blowing all of Ravenloft out back to its regular world counterparts. But things got fixed, and then Grand Conjunction goes weird, and then things go different, and everything moves around.
Yeah.
So actually, time travel in Ravenloft done right is very important and very critical, and a good story. But yes, I'm digressing off that point.
Okay.
Otherwise, don't use time travel without good storyline, and you got to get that just right.
Yeah. But sort of my perception of Ravenloft is that the stories are very fluid, and it's sometimes maybe what happens is maybe there are two identical domains that differ only in how many moons there are, or so they might be exactly the same except for that one aspect.
Well, Nova Vasa is a very interesting thing in that it was originally 1/3 its size, and it's moved a couple times in both relation to the other places in the core, in addition to its size. So you're saying Nova Vasa could, in addition to being the realm where they tell an interesting story about like a Jekyll and Hyde character, which is where its analog comes from, but you could also wind up saying that it's got an interesting quantum uncertainty.
Yeah.
So you could say that, you have, Tristan von Heiregard and Malkin as like the, like the Schrodinger's cat as to which one's which at any given point in time. You could also go it over to like everything's kind of, it's like sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. Woebetide, the first traveler that after the Grand Conjunction, that tries to go from city A to city B, only to find it's 3 times as long now.
Yeah, but like you were saying before, people in Ravenloft just sort of they just sort of accept it. It's like, I guess this trip is now 30 miles instead of 10 miles.
Yeah, but I mean, can you imagine? It's like, we packed enough food for the horses and everybody for like a 2-day trip. Now it's 6 days long. Better start hunting on the countryside, otherwise we're going to starve.
That could happen. Although, like imagine there's a character somewhere who has a knowledge skill related to the domains or the domains of terror.
Well, yeah.
If they have that skill, they would know. Things. Yes, we think this is a 10-mile journey today, but maybe
But the thing is after the Grand Conjunction, it just kind of got like 3 times the size, and it'd be like, well, what happened if you're setting off for a journey like the day after that happens? It's like, are we there yet? God, I swear this only took half as long last time. What do you mean we're not? We're only like 5, 6 of the way through. It's horribly long.
But
what's going on
here?
The
wizened veteran says, the realms change like that, and you can never know when you start out if you're ever going to reach your destination. That's why we brought 3 times as much food.
That would be a very smart idea.
But then
for Ravenloft.
We did bring 3 times as much food, but for all we know, it could be 9 times as long. So we still might starve. But hey, at least we're prepared for this.
I do like that as a nice mentality for the people who travel in Ravenloft. It's like, you know what? I think it's going to go fine, but we're going to take extra precautions, extra supplies, just to make certain, and that does very well work with their mentality. So maybe that's it.
And it's a good plot hook for, a random encounter might be, you might encounter a party who thought they were going on an afternoon trip,
a 3-hour
like
tour, a 3-hour tour,
and they all have like huge beards, and they've been like on the road for hundreds of years.
Well, that's the thing is you could wind up having what they call a pocket domain. Yeah. Wherever the person goes, he kind of usurps normal control, and so it's all him. So he could be their Gothic equivalent to the I guess it's Apocrypha, because it's not really related to anything, but the Wandering Jew.
Yeah.
It'd be the one guy who wound up, just basically giving Jesus, like the nose raz, finger wah.
Yeah, and he's cursed to wander the earth forever.
And Jesus says, well, if you think I'm such a great guy, why don't you wait around till I come back? And it's not the second coming of Christ yet, so he's still wandering around. Mm-hmm. So in which case, that would be like he does something horrible, but it's related to him moving and wandering, so he would have a pocket domain. He never goes to where he's ever searching, and people wind up associating with him, oh, we'll travel with this old man here. We'll protect them, of course, and then they wind up forgetting where it is they were going, and they always wind up wandering forever. A small pack of lonely nomads, never remembering where they're going.
I like the thought, too, that sort of they sort of drop as they go. It's traveled 100 years. I guess I'm too old to travel anymore, so they just die. And then more people join, sort of.
I actually like that. I'm going to put a pin in that, because I think that would make for a nice little pocket domain mini encounter type thing.
There you go.
That's the thing I do like about Ravenloft, too, is it has those little stories, too.
Yeah,
things will happen, in certain, predictable patterns, and then there's the wandering stuff going on here, you encounter the permanent wanderer, the man who used, he found a ring of wishes, and he wished to figure out, what's going on with the myths in Ravenloft, and they don't grant him his wish in just automatic knowledge, but he'll stay alive until he figures it out. Because that's the wonderful way wishes work, both, in the regular fantasy realms, but in particular Ravenloft.
Yes.
God, if you were ever to get a ring of wishes in Ravenloft, just huck that thing in the sea, buddy.
And then it comes back to you.
In which case, you just keep throwing it away, man. Just throw it in the ditch. Give it off to a beggar, man. Just the best thing.
That could be a story in itself. It's just who this ring is passed to.
Just, the smartest thing you can do is just give it off to someone else. That's, oh,
so the setting, especially Ravenloft, I think it's a fool's errand to try and sort of correlate all the stories and everything like that. And especially, if you're leading a team of writers, I'd say the better course is to just let them write whatever they want and say...
Although a little coordination between them would help.
It might be fun. Or even, I think what would be really fun is send them off to write their different stories or novels and do their own thing or whatever. And then they come back and they bring you their stories and their novels and say, okay, we're going to publish them as is, but each one we're going to insert a page or two seamlessly into the story, but we're going to insert a little episode that ties it to what the other people are doing. Even if they're completely otherwise very different and very unrelated, you put in a little episode just in each one.
Where each person encounters an old man wandering the roadside.
It might be that, yeah. Yeah, it might be.
Excellent. Well, I do recall hearing a few things about communal group projects. One was everybody tells a chapter about here's your protagonist, here's the general motif. I think it was a Harlequin romance sort of style is the one I'm thinking of. And they wound up everybody submits the one chapter mini story, and then they wound up having to take it to one cohesive editor, because sometimes the heroine in the story was blonde, sometimes she was a brunette, and sometimes she was 6 feet tall like an Amazon, other times she was a petite waif, and so they had to wind up taking it through the editor to just make sure it's one person for each of the stories that they're telling.
Yeah.
In which case maybe that works best. All the writers tell their stories, and then you just have the one editor to act as a focusing lens before your blast of laser focused light comes out to the public.
Yep. And also as far as spreading out into the world, I think that's sort of realistic in that there will be places in the world that are sort of more focused on. I think that's sort of how it is in real life, although every country has its stories.
You talk to people in New York City, everything's focused on New York City.
Yeah, you get your big cities, and it's everything's about New York.
Your LA, your New York, your Miami area.
Yeah,
and
your London, your Berlin, your Paris, your all the capitals, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. In that case, there are some areas that I guess there's more to be told about that. So just let the stories flow naturally.
I would say so. And that's not to say that, you bring up the point of there's this one country or this one domain that hasn't got a lot of attention, and that's absolutely. I think that's a great idea to notice that and to say, oh, it hasn't got a lot of attention. Well, maybe we could tell a new story there, but you don't have to. That's not absolutely essential, but it's definitely an opportunity. It's something to try. If you feel like you want to, go for it.
Well, I'll say this is sometimes the big fans of Ravenloft don't always give the fair shake to the characters. Maybe because it hasn't been brought up properly or whatever. So it may just be bad lighting, I suppose.
For the dark realms.
yes. If you allow me to do a bit of a bad pun there.
Right. I think I should let listeners know that we have an email address. thesimulationist@gmail.com is where you can reach us. You can also leave comments on the blog, on the YouTube videos with these same things. You can leave iTunes reviews. Yes, we have a Facebook page where you can leave comments. And on the blog and everything like that. You can also listen to us on Stitcher. If you do enjoy the show, share it with a friend, please. Let your friends know. If you don't have any friends, share it with
share it with the enemies you can respect.
Inflict us on your enemies. If you have any other gamers in your circles...
I'll tell you this, though. The best way to destroy an enemy is convert them into a friend. So if you got an enemy and you like this show, link it to them and let them like it, and then you have something to connect with, and maybe they won't be your enemy much longer.
Indeed.
Blow your mind.
So that said, do we have final wrap-up thoughts on this topic?
I like the concept of it being a starter zone, someplace that's evil but not so dangerously lethal. Everyone has to be paranoid to survive. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a very interesting way of portraying it, as him being the least evil of the Dark Lords, and thus the best area for a person now first and second level to start out at.
Mm-hmm.
That's changed my mind about that. I would like to see something happening in all nooks and crannies, all corners. At least something detailed, like if you go to the Mystopedia, and to some of these more, cultured realms. Oh, hey, here's, a list of important locations in this city. Here's the history of this city. It would be nice if someone at least has, oh yes, you go to this place here. Here's the main inn. There's one trading area. It's named by this. Oh, by the way, secret fact: the person who runs the trading post is secretly one of the Werepanther, secret police of the Dark Lord. And so, as the players get supplies, anything that seems suspicious will wind up being relayed. The forces in control will know about it. Simple things like that I would like to see. Just a little bit more detail as opposed to the near blank slate it is.
Okay. Yeah, and my position is that I kind of don't mind blank slates, but if somebody felt the inspiration to fill it in, I'm fine with that too.
Well, maybe it's just me, because Ravenloft always seemed like such a rich place, dark, very dark but rich. So I guess maybe it's like a 90% dark chocolate.
Well, and you gotta keep in mind too that the purpose of Ravenloft is to act as a campaign setting, and the idea is that they hand it off to a DM, and the DM doles out information to their players as the players can consume it. So the players aren't going to be reading encyclopedias. I mean, they do, but they're not necessarily reading encyclopedias to bone up on Ravenloft. They're getting the information from the DM as he hands it out, or sort of ideally. But you think that people publishing should have a decent amount of hooks, like. Well, aren't there in other areas of the world?
Definitely, like with Borka, the Dark Lord ruling there, Ivana. She poisons people in such a way that they can no longer touch anyone. They become her personal assassins, but they forever forsake knowing that the touch of a loved one, because their touch is poison. And that leads up to some very... if you can't come up with a decent little story about that, about a villain you can pity, well, I mean, my goodness, you might need to sit down and rethink whether or not you want to tell a story, or you need to do some more reading first, because this opens up, but there doesn't seem to be those hooks in some of the other areas that could really flesh it out and really bring us like, ooh, I know a half dozen good stories for this realm I could tell just by reading the description. I will have a campaign here. Other areas seem much more suited for the multifaceted, I could weave a wonderful tapestry of a story here.
Yeah, and, well, how many of those do you really need? Like, if a DM is looking to, okay, I want to run a Ravenloft campaign, like, what are my options? And, they pick from the realms. They find their favorite realm, and okay, I'll go with that one. And if that DM happens to be the more sort of creative type and likes to come up with their own hooks and their own new ideas, then maybe it helps to have that sort of empty area and be like, oh, I could, add my own, like, little hierarchy in this zone, and I could add my own little hooks and just invent my own stuff.
Well, every area does have its own little theme. I mean, one of the areas Vlad Drakov attacked into, all his lieutenants rebelled against him. They kind of defected over to the local side. Well, one reason for that being, he had just gotten through a nice pogrom of destroying a lot of his incompetent lieutenants.
Okay.
And so that's a nice reason to affect as soon as you can get out of his dagger range, so to speak. But it's also the nature of the realm. It's ruled by a person who, just by speaking to you, can warp your mind. He will make you believe whatever you want as he tells you. And so that's the theme, as people trading alliances almost on a whim sort of thing. And that's the theme of the realm. So why did they defect in this military campaign? It's kind of the nature of the area they went into.
Mm-hmm. So
if you want to tell a nice story, it's like, I want to tell a story about subtle poisons and deep stuff. You go Borka. If you say, I want to tell, like, vampires who rule the countryside in a Dracula type style, you go to Barovia. If you want your quantum uncertainty, like, is he this or that? Maybe they're both. You go over to Nova Vasa. If you want something a little bit more in a traditional style with, other races sort of thing going on, head up north to Darkon. Everything has its own nice flavor. And so it'd be nice if places like Valachon had a more concrete, so that when you read it, you understand its style more. It's about hypocrisy. Yes, I could tell a good couple stories based on that theme, and that promotes people in there. Maybe it just needs a better opening.
Sure, but then, it's my thought on that. Yeah. Okay, just to drag this out even further. My thought on that, though, is, okay, so go ahead and develop that.
Ravenloft is the 32 flavors of storytelling sort of motif.
Go ahead and develop that domain or zone or whatever. But at the same time, elsewhere in the world, maybe across a small gap in the sea or somewhere, a new domain pops into existence. It is the faceless domain. It is the domain that doesn't yet have an identity. And then that becomes the one that hasn't had a lot of stories told about
I
yet.
think you could tell some very decent potentials just on the realm of nobody having any faces.
Okay, and then another realm pops up of
and that's the fun with Ravenloft, is there's always another realm that can just pop up, or you can always say a small conjunction occurs and all of a sudden, extra land just shoved right up on there. They're connected now, but not for very long. Just long enough to tell a good story. Yeah. Then it kind of separates out again. It was only a minor conjunction.
Yeah, and so, if a region doesn't have enough, interesting stuff that happens, what do you just,
you can make a new realm that tells the story you're looking for, and you can put it where you want, because that's kind of how things go there. So I kind of dig that.
Okay, so I don't know I don't know what we concluded, but...
could be a little bit more worked. I give the whole area B+. Nice amount of potential. Could do a little bit more. Yeah. Could be more expressly written. Like, as I said, I've been reading this stuff since 2nd edition back in the 90s, and only just recently did I truly get what that area is about, what is up with their Dark Lord. Other areas you can pick up just like that. This one required me to basically have someone sit down and say, it's hypocrisy. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that makes complete sense now. I get it. It just didn't tell a compelling enough proper story to get me to see it the first 4 or 5 times I read through.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, there's something to be said about making sure you get just the right flavor for the opening to get people into the rhythm sort of thing. So, c'est la vie, I suppose. I got it eventually. Hooray!
Yeah, and there's always more to explore. But yeah, I think we've gone well over time for this episode. So thank you all for sticking with us. We'll be back again next week with another iteration of the Simulationist Podcast.
Take care out there.
My name's been Josh Trelevin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
And Sid Money.